Okay everyone, so now we are learning the FCL. FCL stands for the Framework Class Library. First of all, we must know that in the .NET there are three major components. The first one is the CLR. We know that CLR is the Common Language Runtime. The total execution of the .NET code is taken care by the CLR. Even it provides the JIT compiler. With the help of we do the two-step compilation. Then afterward, the second component we are having is the CTFs, which is called the Common Type System. We know that in the .NET, the code is interoperable, means the code of VB.NET can be used into the C#.NET. So one language code can be used to the other language. That's why this CTS component is taken care of. Then third component, which is the major component of .NET, is the FCL. Now FCL stands for the Framework Class Library. Now to understand the Framework Class Library, I am taking one example. Let's say if we talk about the C language, we know that in a C programming language, we write some program. We know that in that program we use many of the lines. Let's say we are using the printf, right, or the scanf. Now these printf or the scanf statements, these are no meaning in the English language. But whenever we are using these printf and scanf into the C, they becomes more powerful and they are even printing the output on the screen and they are taking the input from the user. So who is giving them the power? So let's say it is our C code. Now who is giving the power to this code? We know that there are the header files. So these header files are giving the power to this particular code. We know that there are multiple header files. Let's say if we talk about stdio or conio.h. So these are the header files. Similarly, if we talk about the Java, same thing happen in the Java. Let's say we are having the code. Now there are some input and output statements. Now who is giving them the power? In the Java, there are set of predefined classes are available and they are called the packages. So in the Java, they are having the same meaning but they are called the package. Just like we are having the lang package for the language, we are having the util package, we are having the .NET package for the networking. And if you talk about the .NET here, in the .NET same type, let us say you are creating some application and you are writing the code for that. Now who is giving the power to these applications? There are some predefined classes and set of libraries are available, that is called the FCL. Just like we are having the system.data, so these types of libraries are already present into the .NET. So this is called the framework class library. So these are some predefined classes which are giving the power to our code. Now in the C we say them the header files, in Java we say them the packages, in .NET we say them the library. So framework class library is the part of library which is having multiple classes and they provide the power to our code. So we can say that FCL is a library which contain reusable manageable classes and the interfaces. Now what is the classes? We know that in the object oriented programming we are going to combine the functions and the variable, that is called the classes. So these classes are reusable, means this class we can create and provide to other, they can also use it. So that's why they are called reusable. And what are manageable? We know that whenever we are compiling the code to the intermediate language, that is called the manageable. So those classes and interfaces, interface is the part of object oriented programming. We know that whenever the classes don't have their definitions, they are called the interfaces. So everything means all classes, interfaces, they are available into the library and they provide the power to the code. Now FCL is basically CLS compliant so that it can provide the interoperability. We know that in the .NET, if we are writing the code in the VB.NET, we can run that code into the C#.NET. So one code can be converted to the other code. Now CLS is the part who is taking care. Common language specification means all the languages are having same specification. That's why the code of one can be converted to the other, and FCL work with the CLS. So FCL is the CLS compliant. That means whatever the classes are available, libraries are available. Now these all are following the rules of CLS so that one language can be converted to the other. One more thing about the framework class library is that FCL is object oriented library. We know that object oriented programming, or which we say that double OP, this is very much important for the real life concept because it is following the four features: abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. Now these all features are taken care by the framework class library, means all the classes which are available in the framework class library, they are object oriented programming based, means these concepts are already included. So this is the main thing about the framework class library. Now we are understanding that what is the library and what is the base class library or what is the framework class library. So first of all, we should know that library is something where we are having all the files which are providing the power to the code. Let's say in the C we are having the header file, in the Java we are having packages, in the .NET we are having the library. So now how many types of libraries are we are discussing? So now we are learning the types of library. So if we talk about the library, then there are two types here. The first one we are having is the base class library, or also called BCL. And if we talk about the second type, that is our topic which we are learning today, that is framework class library, or also called FCL. As the name signifies base class library, that means basic classes. And what is the basic? We know that fundamental. So fundamental means whenever we are going to declare normal data types, we are dealing with that. So these are the basics and the fundamentals. So base class library or the BCL contain basic and fundamental types only. That means it is only for the basic purpose or fundamental utility. But if you talk about the framework class library or FCL, now this is having very wider approach. This is very huge. So it is a wider library that contain ASP.NET, WinForm, ADO.NET. So everything it is having. Now if we talk about the ASP.NET, ASP.NET is very much useful for creating the web pages. Whenever we talk about the websites, let's say the Facebook if you want to design, then here we use the ASP.NET. So it is for the web pages. Then if you talk about the WinForm, it is the Windows form. Whenever you are going to develop any of the form for the desktop application, let's say you are having some user ID and password button here. Now those forms you can create with the help of the WinForms. Now ADO, ActiveX Data Object.NET. Now this is for the connectivity. Let's say you want to connect your project with some Oracle or the SQL server, then here you need the connectivity. So ADO.NET provides you the connectivity. So these all things are available with the FCL. So FCL is very wider library which contain everything. Now important thing is that FCL also include the BCL. That means if we are having the BCL, we know that BCL stands for the base class library. So this is the capability and power of BCL. Now above that we are having the FCL. So FCL is the superset which contain the BCL inside that. That means if your system is supporting the FCL, you already have the basic things, means base class library is the part of framework class library. So we are learning the framework class library means we are also covering all the classes and the fundamental types which are available into the base class library. So that is the difference between the BCL and the FCL. Now we are learning the tasks which are performed by the framework class library. So the first task performed by the FCL is the database connectivity. We know that either we are creating the web form or we are creating the window form. There we are having a project. Now in this project, let's say we are having some kind of text boxes and the button. So this is our front end. So this front end means this is available for the user. User will see it. Now there are so many things which we should save on the database. Let's say there are user and password details we have to save. There are some kind of, let's say, some details of the user that we have to save. So these all details we need to save on the database. Now this database should be connected with the front end. So front end and the back end, database is called the back end. So they two be connected. So the connectivity task is taken care by the FCL. Means FCL is already having set of libraries. With that we can connect the database. That we can say that database connectivity. So front end and the back end can be connected. Front end is our application for the project and backend is the where data saved, just like your SQL, Oracle. So their connectivity is done by the FCL libraries. Now second task is the string handling. We know that in a project we deal with many of the strings and there are various projects on that. Let's say we are concatenating two strings, we are giving the reverse of the string, we are giving first three characters of the string. So all the string functions are available in the library. So FCL contain the string handling functions by which we can handle the string. We can concat, we can reverse, up, upper, lower. So anything we can do with the help of this libraries. So now we are learning the next task and that task is input output functionality. Input output is also called IO. So IO functionality. We know that whenever we are dealing with any of the project takes the input from the user, that is called the input stream, and it gives the output to the user, that is called the output stream. So these two streams are taken care by the libraries automatically. Means these libraries are giving you the functions so that you can take the input from the user and you can provide the output to the user. So that is already inbuilt with the library. Then afterward we are having the next task, which is the file handling. File handling, that means you want to handle a file. Let's say you are creating some of the code in any of the application. So here in the application I am writing the code, and with this help of code I want to create a file, let's say into the C drive or somewhere. Now this file you want to edit, you want to modify, or you want to execute. So read, write and execute. So these permissions you want to provide. So with the help of that, this .NET libraries, you can easily work with that. So these permissions can be already provided to the coder, that you can use those libraries, and with the help of that you can create the file. You can just provide them the power, you can edit the file or delete the file. So with the help of the code you can easily work with the file. So this one is the code. With the help of that we just made the file, write, read and execute. So these features we can provide. So these are the four major tasks of the libraries: database connectivity, string handling, input output functionality and the file handling. Now we are learning very important concept under the framework class library, that is called the namespace. Now to understand the namespace, I am taking one example here. We know that whenever we are going to write the code in .NET, let's say this is my code and which I am writing into the .NET. So I am writing here, this is the code. Inside the code I am using various functions. Let's say the functions which I am using are readline. So readline function is used for reading the line. It is the replacement of scanf of C. And let's say we are using the writeline. Writeline function is same as the function of printf. It is of C programming. So in the .NET we are having, let's say, read line and write line functions here for reading and the writing. Now we know that this is the code, and these functions will get the power from the library, and we know that that is the framework class library. So let's say we are having the complete FCL here. This is very huge library, and this FCL is framework class library that is providing the power to these functions. Just like in the C we are having the header file, in Java we are having packages. So in the .NET the code we are having the framework class library. Now this framework class library is having the namespaces. As I have told you that framework class library is the combination of multiple classes. There are many classes available, but these classes are combined together logically. Let's say we are having multiple classes, out of that, all the classes which are related to color are combined together. So let's say we can say that inside this FCL we are having one color. So this is the, let's say, color. Now based upon this color we have combined all the colors. So now they are combined together. Let's say here we have combined the classes of blue color, we are having the classes of, let's say, red color, then we are having the classes of, let's say, gray color. So all the classes which are related to color are combined together, and they are combined and given them the name as namespace. So this is the namespace 1. So we can say that this one is the namespace 1. So this is one namespace with the name color. Let's say there is another set of classes which are related to the database connectivity. Now all those classes which are related to the database connectivity are combined together, and they are giving them the name, let's say, data. So now inside that we are having all the classes related to the database. Let's say we are having for the SQL, we are having for the Oracle. So this way all the classes we are combining together, and logically we are combining. Now this is given the name as namespace. So let's say this is the namespace 2. So that means we should understand that the library is the combination of multiple classes. Now in those multiple classes, the classes are logically combined together, and their combination is called the namespace. And who is going to combine? Their logical representation. Let's say we are saying all the colors classes should be together. So all the color classes are together is making one namespace. This is namespace color. Let's say we are having all the classes which are related to database connectivity. They are given them the namespace as data. So we can say that as per the diagram we are having two namespaces, color namespace and the data namespace, and which contain combinedly the classes, and the namespace combination is called the framework class library. You can assume that for the understanding. Let's say if we are having the my computer, we know that this is the my computer of our system. Inside that we are having some C drive. So let's say this portion we have reserved for the C drive, and this portion we are having for the D drive. Now inside C drive we have combined the system files. In the D drive, let's say we are having the user files, and this is the my PC. So this is the complete representation of the framework class library. So I have taken the example here. So my PC is what? It is the framework class library, and their drives are what? They are the namespaces, and inside the drives we are having files, and they are what? Classes. So we should understand that the framework class library is combination of various namespaces, and in those namespaces we are having files related to that. So if I want to use the colors in my project, I will be going on the only color namespace. So color namespace is the part of library, and if I have to do the database connectivity, so I will only use the namespace data, and which is the part of framework class library. So this is how we can understand this namespaces, or we can say that It is the organization of libraries according to their functionality. Organization of library means in the FCL we are having so many classes and all. Now these are combined as per their functionality. So we can say that the libraries are well organized as per their functionality. So if we want to include the color, we will be only going to the color. There is another name of framework class library that we can say that FCL is the hierarchy of namespaces. The hierarchy signifies that there is a proper way. Just like if you has to go to the data, then you will be going to the FCL. FCL we are having the data. Inside the data we are having the SQL and the Oracle. So this way a complete hierarchy is maintained. So in the FCL we are having the namespaces, and the namespaces we are having the classes. So levels are defined. So there is a complete hierarchy. That's why it is called that FCL is the hierarchy of namespaces. Or we can say that FCL contain more than 20,000 classes which are logically grouped in the hierarchical manner. So these 20,000 classes are then divided. Let's say out of 20,000, 1,000 are for color, then they are combined together and given them the name color namespace. Let's say out of 20,000, 5,000 classes are for database connectivity. Now these 1,000 classes are combined and given them the name data. So this is the data namespace. So this is how there are multiple classes available and they are logically grouped together, and these all are the namespaces, and these all namespaces combined together is called the framework class library or the library. So we can simply say that namespace is the combination of various classes, interfaces and the structure of similar type. So in the namespace we are having the same classes, structures, and they belong to the same functionality. Let's say in a color namespace we are having all those classes which are related to the colors. In data namespace we are having all those classes which are related to the database connectivity. So this is about the namespace, and namespace is the part of framework class library. Now we are taking some examples of the namespaces. Let's say if we are taking the first namespace, which is the system.data. First of all, we should know that system is the root namespace. So with the system, all the namespaces will start. So we can say that system is the root namespace. Just like in the tree we are having the root. So trees start from the root. Similarly, the namespaces start from the system. So system is the root namespace, and now we are learning the first namespace, which is the system.data. We know that data signify the database. So this namespace used for the database functionality. So that means if I am including this namespace system.data, then whole database connectivity functionality will be provided to me. But let's say if I don't want the complete functionality, I am only want to connecting to the SQL client or SQL server. Let's say I want to connect to the SQL client only. Then I will be using specific system.data.SQL client. We can see that SQL client is after the data. That means from the database we are including only the SQL client. So this is one more example of taking the namespace, because system.data.SQL client is also a namespace inside the data. So here we are including the functionality only specific to SQL server. Let's say I don't want this SQL. I want to only connect to database. Now I can include the namespace which will be system.data.OLEDB. OLEDB stands for object linking and the embedding of database. So it is only providing me the functionality for accessing object linking and embedding of database. So this is how, if you want to work with the database connectivity, either we can include the complete database functionality by system.data, or we can use the individual one. Let's say I am including the individual namespace like system.data.SQL client only with the SQL functionality, or I am including SQL.data.OLEDB that is for the object linking and embedding of the databases. So whenever we are connecting with the database, now then we want this. So this is how we need the namespaces, and we should understand that there are various classes in the library. Now these classes are logically grouped together and their groups are called the namespace, and now multiple namespaces combinedly are called the libraries. So this is how we can take the libraries and we can include them into our program and we can give them the power. So this is all about the framework class library.